Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are located. I'm going to get started here in just a minute. I want to give the opportunity for everyone to get connected and settle in. So we'll get started here in just a minute. Thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We are going to discuss a very important topic, and that's going to be the overall conversion process when we are used to using QuickBooks and going into Studio Designer from the QuickBooks application. Today's webinar will be led by our consultant partner, Mareevuitton. A little bit about her firm. Her firm specializes working over a decade in Studio Designer, servicing users worldwide. Her firm, Mareevuitton, is the rebranding of her accounting firm business, focusing on more content and training as the best way to maximize efforts and help business owners grow. So today's webinar will be about 45 minutes of instruction. The remaining 15 minutes, we're going to have Q&A. So at the bottom of your Zoom control panel, you'll be able to put in your questions as shown here on the box on the right side of the slide. You'll put in your questions, and we're going to get to as many questions that we can for today's webinar. Also, please know that today's webinar is going to be recorded, so you can refer back to the recording if needed. So all that to be said, I will now pass this over to Marie. How are you, Marie?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking time out to attend this webinar. Congratulations on wanting to make the switch to Studio Designer, or at least getting the information that you need to make such a decision, okay? I've done hundreds of conversions over the years, and I also take trouble calls for those of you who need help at any point during this process. Studio Designer is a great tool and one of the best investments that you can make into your business. And the conversion process does not have to be dreaded or cumbersome, okay? For those of you with a bookkeeper or an accountant that you normally work with, I would encourage them to sit in on the conversion process or be involved, you know, to some degree. Okay, and if you don't have one, like I said, I do take these kinds of projects on, but you don't need me to do this for you. Okay, I'm going to actually walk through the processes that I do when I go over these kinds of conversions, and I'm going to show you exactly where I pull up the instructions. I don't have a special set of instructions. I use the same one that you would pull up, and I am going to go ahead and dive right in and do on-screen tutorials before we get to the Q&As. So
great. Thanks, Marie. Yeah, go ahead and share your screen and we'll get started.
Okay. So let's make sure you can see everything, guys. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we are seeing your balance sheet.
Okay, perfect. The reason I wanted to call up this balance sheet is because I wanted to show you all that I am starting with the zero financials. There's, you know, I'm really going through the full conversion process on this call, okay? The first thing I want to point out is that I do work with multiple tabs open, and I'll explain why and as we move along. But you can pull up your user guide for those of you that don't know. I'm kind of toggling over it right here. You can pull up your user guide anytime you work, which is what I do. I don't have a physical book anywhere. And I'm just going to type in accounting conversion. Okay, and you can see it's right here. It's the first thing that pulls up. Okay, and these are the set of instructions that I follow when doing these conversions, okay? Now, the thing that I want you to understand is the conversion process itself are these 7 steps. It's not more than that, okay? So I want to make sure that that is known, okay? And these 7 steps above are more of your prep. Okay, this is the prep work that goes into this, but the actual conversion really is only this. Okay, so it doesn't have to be cumbersome. And if you follow them perfectly, you're fully capable of doing this on your own. Okay, and if you run into any issues, you can contact Studio or reach out to me. Okay, so that being said, I'm just going to really walk over these fairly quickly and then get right down to the conversion. Okay, you want to know, the first thing it's asking is you're a prior system, cash or accrual. Well, if you're coming from QuickBooks, you can toggle between the two. I don't recommend that, but you can. Okay, and how you would know, well, on QuickBooks, you can, like I said, you can toggle, but you can quickly see if you have AR, which is accounts receivable, AP, accounts payable, client deposits, vendor deposits, or WIP, which is work in progress, then that is going to be an accrual, which is the preferred method for this kind of business. Okay. Sales tax, you're just going to want to make sure that the amount, if applicable, if there's any amount in your sales tax payable, you're going to want to make sure that that in fact is the amount that you either owe, you know, maybe you haven't made the payment or you haven't filed the next sales tax return. You just want to make sure that that is in fact the correct amount. Okay. Any adjustments are going to be made in your prior system. So make sure that that's correct. Okay. And then the next set of steps are picking a start date. Now, I get asked this all the time. If you come to me today, even though we're about 5, almost 6 months into the year and wanted to do a conversion, the first thing I would ask is if your tax return for 2022 is done. If it's not, then I would say, okay, are they ready to give to the CPA for tax? Okay, because I like to start with a full calendar year or whatever your fiscal year end date would be. Okay, for those of you that don't want to do that for any other reason, okay, and I have people that want to do that, you can pick any date you want. Okay, the start date is you just want to make sure that everything is reconciled and cleaned up to that date. And for me, I usually like the hard cutoff of having the old system, having the old stuff and everything new and for this calendar year available in Studio. It's not very difficult to update the last 5 months thereafter, okay, no matter how large the company is. Okay, so pick a start date. So if you said, I don't want to do 12/31 or I don't want to do the first of the year, then I would say, okay, I'd probably push for a quarter. Would 4/1 be better? And if you said no, then I would just pick whatever you wanted and we would start from there, okay? But by doing that, you need to know that you're gonna wanna reconcile all cash, credit card, and loan statements through that date. So obviously, if you said I wanted to do it on June 1st, then I would say, well, we have to make sure that everything's done for May. So that's all of this, okay? And sometimes those statements come in weird dates. So that being said, you're gonna wanna print and correct any of the mistakes on the old system. So if there's accounts receivable and it's really old, like, you know that you may not collect that, you're gonna wanna clean that up in the old system, okay? The way that you can make this smooth and seamless is by cleaning up and making sure you're only taking over accurate and current information into Studio. It makes no sense for us to clean something up, take over an old AR like from 2 years ago that you don't know if you can collect it, but we take it over because we have to then clean it up in Studio, which makes no sense because the backup is in your old system. Okay, so clean these up. The cleaner and better that these financials are, like I said, this piece is going to be fairly quick and you'll see by me walking through it. Okay, and you're going to print or before you make any final reports or before you consider any reports final, you're going to want to make any deposits for any undeposited funds. That doesn't apply to everybody. So if you have an undeposited funds account, it's easier and clearer to make that zero out before you do this, okay? So once that's all done, you can print a trial balance, and I am going to share the reports that I pull up, which are also outlined in these steps if you pull this up in your Studio. But I'm going to pull up what I have, and I'm going to just show you my set of financials that we're going to do for this conversion. Okay, this is my balance sheet. I'm just going to go over them quickly. Okay, P&L, profit and loss. I did print a trial balance and I did make some notes, and I'll share you those details as we get there. This is the accounts receivable, and I want to make sure that I can see what invoices and totals make up the accounts receivable. That's what I'm looking for when I'm pulling up the accounts receivable. I'm pulling up any accounts payable. Vendor deposits are monies paid to vendors for items that have not been invoiced, even in an old system, or anything that you have pending, like in work in progress, depending on how your reports read. Okay. And lastly, client deposits. This is monies we have on the books for the clients, regardless of it, whether it was applied to an item or they just pay amounts on their account or it's a retainer. These are the totals. Okay. So it's very, very easy to pull those up from QuickBooks. Okay. And then we're just going to go ahead and go over these steps. So the first step in a conversion is entering all items not invoiced in the old system. Okay. I took the liberty of prepping these items so we wouldn't sit here and walk over it all during this process. Okay. But how you would do that is you're going to go to projects and items, and you're going to just click this new item button and fill out all the information to get any items that are not yet invoiced. Okay. Don't jump ahead and say, well, what about amounts that we paid, this and that? One thing at a time. You're going to just set it up as if it's a new item. That's how I like to think about it. Okay. You're going to want to put whatever it is you purchase, whatever it is you're going to sell, regardless of, you know, where you are. It has not been invoiced yet. Okay. So I took the liberty of setting these items up. I did 1, 2, 3, skip this one, 4. I did 4 items, and you can see that I used the correct, sales code for what they were. And I set these 4 items up. Okay. That is basically that step, setting up the items that were not invoiced. Okay. Fairly easy. Okay. And then the next was setting up your accounts receivable. Okay. Let me pull that up. So we're here. Step 2 is setting up accounts receivable. So what I did to do that is and I'll actually show you my QuickBooks report for that as well. I basically took this piece of information, and I know it's a little weird. This is how it really prints in QuickBooks, but this is a report. So I'm just going to enter the 4 invoices that are in my AR that make up that total. Okay. So all I did to do that was go into projects, activities, and click this blue button. When you do so, this pops up and you're going to go ahead and just enter the information. For the sake of time, I went ahead and prepped these, and you can see I put in as much information. I'm just going to show you what I did. So when that popped up, I just put it as basic as I could. And I just wanted to know, this is QuickBooks, prior QuickBooks invoice, blah, blah, blah. This was the date. It was for tables. These internal notes are for me because I have to clean this up after this webinar. So these internal notes are for you and your team. Okay. And that's what that is. And if I were to set all these up, which normally which I did, but I prepped it, I would just clone this and keep going. So I could get all these entries in fairly quickly. It took less than 5 minutes. Okay. So I just continue to get these in, and now you'll see, I have a time entry for each of those 4. Now, when I go ahead and invoice it out, I'm just going to go ahead and invoice it out. Whoops. Like this. Okay. I'm going to copy and paste this, and I'm going to actually go into time billing. Let me pull it up there. Oh, I am in time billing. Okay. So I'm going to just go ahead and select the first one, and I like to label all my invoices, and I recommend that to everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and create this invoice. It's that simple. It's named and everything. I'm going to close it. And then I'm going to go to the next one by date, because I'm liking to do it by date. You'll see. Whoops. Oh, wrong one. I'm just gonna create these invoices. And the next one was the dining room art. I'm gonna open it again up. That's the dining room art. And the backup for all this stuff is going to be in your old system, but I usually get a copy of the invoices to attach with all the reports anyways. So I'm going to create the last AR, okay, and I'm not going to pull up the financials yet to show you what it does. I am going to move along to the next step, which is accounts payable. And for me, I did not have a ton of accounts payable, and this is basically what it is. So this is just an old open open PO that we owe to the vendor. I usually don't have those kinds of things happen just because of the way I project manage in here. But I did take the liberty of creating an item for that. And when I did that, you'll notice I used time billing, okay? Because this is an old AP, this project isn't even active, it's old. The client's been billed, so you'll see that I went ahead and set it up as if it, you know, as if it was a new project, but on the amount that's going to bill the client, I am not going to do that. Okay. So I just, because the client has paid, it's invoiced, it's done. It's just an old AP that's sitting out there. The vendor is, if the vendor wasn't going to ask for this, or if I wasn't sure, I probably wouldn't have brought it over. I'd do the cleanup in the old system. But for the sake of this webinar, I'm going to just go ahead and invoice it out. It's not going to do anything to my AR because there's nothing that the client's going to owe. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and invoice this. And I will name it exactly like that. Because remember, I said I always like my things labeled. Okay, and that took care of the AP. You would do that for however many that you needed to. Okay. And that was accounts payable. That was step number 3. Vendor deposits are monies paid to vendors for items that have not been invoiced. Well, I pulled up my vendor deposit report, and you can see that this, whoops, let me show it to you. This was my vendor deposit list. So you can see I clearly can identify the clients and the items that are part of this vendor deposit. So clearly, these vendors have been paid these totals on things that have not yet been invoiced to the client. That's what a vendor deposit is. Those were the items that I set up here, those 4. I set the POs already, and I'm just going to quickly show you how I post these vendor deposits. Okay, so now that there's a PO, I'm just going to go into the payment. I have it set to 100%, and I'm just going to post these to the generic cost of sales. And I'm going to use my, whoops, I'm going to use my invoice. Okay, and I will use something that's like conversion. So that way I know that no matter what happens, you do not want to touch anything that was associated or posted as part of the conversion. And I'll explain why as we finish. Okay, so I'm going to just post this payment. Yep. And then we're going to go through and do that for the rest of them. Okay, this is just going to get my amounts in. I'm not using the real check numbers or any of that. I'm just going in and making it simple and putting all the amounts for this task. A couple more. I'm going to leave that one. And I will show you what this does to our financial statement in just a moment. One more. I wanted to show multiple because I wanted to also show how quick and easy it all was. And we'll catch if we posted any of these incorrectly in just a moment. So this takes care of posting vendor deposits, okay? Those four, let me make sure I posted them all. Yeah, so those took care of my vendor deposits, and I'll show you how we can confirm that, okay? And so that was step number 4. And then the next step is client deposits. Client deposits is money that we've received from our clients, regardless of whether it was on an item that hasn't been invoiced, a retainer, or just an amount that they've paid on their account, okay? You can see I only have 3 clients that have that, okay? So again, if it were to go to items, we'll allocate that and distribute that all later. I just want to show you how we're going to get these funds into each client, okay, for the sake of this conversion. So what I did was I went into accounting, money in, and in through here, you can do several things, but I chose receive client payment. Okay, I put in the date, I put in the total for this client, which you can see here. Okay, I'm just going down the list, okay? Regardless of when they paid it. If at the date of the conversion, they had client deposits, this is how I'm getting it in there. Okay, so I'm gonna copy and paste this. So I'm gonna go ahead and post this. I am going to then post the next amount. You can see it's defaulting to today. And I'm just going to go ahead and continue. I'm using the cash account instead of it being the checking, just so you know, I'm using income time billing, and you'll see why when we get to the final step. Okay, and the last client is client Smith. Do the same thing. And we have 2250, and I'm just going to post that. Okay, so that took care, that is how quick and easy the client deposit situation or posting took, okay? So that was client deposits, okay? And the last and big step here is this journal entry to record beginning balances, okay? Well, recording beginning balances is something that we're going to take from the trial balance, okay? So those of you that have a trial balance, it's going to look something similar to this. You'll either see, you know, positives and negatives. You may see it read debit and credit, okay? Whatever that looks like on your report, it's basically going to give you what the journal entry is going to be, okay? I prepped a journal entry, but I wanted to point out that there were accounts receivable, vendor deposits, accounts payable, and client deposits. Disregard the fact that it has the AJE. Like, I look at this over here with my notes. So instead, I posted AR to income time billing, vendor deposits went to cost of goods sold, generic, accounts payable is to cost of goods sold, generic, and client deposits.
Marie?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt real quick. Can you make your screen bigger with the little
Yes,
plus sign there?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
No worries.
That's great.
So basically, this is what I'm pulling from. Okay. I took this is your trial balance is basically your balance sheet and profit and loss in one big report. Okay. Based on a certain date. So this is exactly what the journal entry is going to look like. Exactly. Okay. The only difference is I have to change these to these. Okay. So these two are going to income time billing and these two are going to cost of goods sold. The reason is because Studio does not allow you to journal entry into any subledgers. Your subledgers are going to be only 5 accounts always: accounts receivable, vendor deposits, accounts payable, client deposits, and inventory. Those are not journal entry, which I love because it's a protection. Like you can't, if you have something, you want to know who, like if you have somebody that owes you money in an accounts receivable, you want to know who owes it to you, what for, and how much. If I paid my vendor something and I know that it's, you know, in progress, I want to know who the vendor is, what project it's on, how much I paid, and the date. Same thing with accounts payable, and it's same thing with client deposits. That is why you cannot journal entry into them. I get asked that a lot, or people getting annoyed that you can't journal. Well, it's a protection to you. Okay, you don't want people to put any amounts in there that you don't have all that information, and that is how Studio prevents that. So that is my rebuttal to anybody that questions that. You don't want to do that. And the other thing that I get asked a lot is about the deleting. Why can't we delete? You do not want to have anybody, including me, your accountant, or anybody else, the ability to just delete things. Okay, that is why. So that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and show you where I put this information. It's the last step. We'll talk about the bank rec after, but that's a little piece of it. So what I did was going back in. So under accounting and journal entry, you would just start by clicking this new journal entry. Well, in my case, I prepped it for the sake of this webinar, so we didn't have that. So I want to just show you what this is because it's huge and it kind of scares people, but it shouldn't. So this is your trial balance, guys. This is everything that was on here. Okay, line item by line item. The only things that you're going to find that's different, watch this, is accounts receivable. I know you can't see that. Let me make it bigger. Sorry. So your AR is 17,99804. Okay, let me look for that over here. 17,99804. It went into income time billing. That was accounts receivable. Okay. The next line item that I want to point out is the vendor deposits. Cost of goods sold, 12,386. Okay, let's move this out of the way. And let's find that. 12,386. It's going to cost of goods sold. Okay, and go back to the next item and I'll show you the rest. Accounts payable, 3,420 and 30 cents. It's right here. It's negative into cost of sales, 3,420 and 30 cents. And let's see. Client deposits for 7,800 flat. Make that out of the way. Right here, income time billing, negative. Okay, so you can see that basically this is everything that is on this. Okay, like I said, your trial balance right here is balance sheet and P&L. So you're just going through and entering it. That's all a trial balance is. It's the totals of everything on both of these two reports on a certain date. Okay, and in this case, I'm wanting to get my beginning balances at 12/31 so I can go live in Studio on 1/1. Okay, so this is how we get the beginning balances in. Now, I know this is huge and sometimes people freak out, but the good part is if I was off even by a penny, let me just show you, it won't let me post it. Studio won't let me post it. Okay, I can try to post and it will not allow it. Okay, it's off. So it's telling you that you're off by a penny, which is always the worst, right? But I'm going to correct it and I am going to post it so you can kind of see what that looks like. So here, I didn't get into, I want into, too much on each line item. I just wanted to show that it was 12/31/22 conversion to Studio beginning balances. That's all I needed to know. That was what I wanted for the reference. Okay, I know that everything that's coded under this was part of my conversion. Okay, so here it's gonna automatically try to date it for today, but I wanted to make sure that we backdated it to the right date. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and post this. This is all the information on the trial balance. Okay, I am going to go ahead and post this. Okay, now what just happened? Okay, I'm going to show you. So we're going back into the reports, and how I got there were reports, legacy reports, balance sheet. And I am looking for my financials for this conversion. Okay, just want to show you something here. So what we're looking at, guys, is my balance sheet for Studio for this conversion. So at 12/31/22, this right here is my balance sheet. Now, hang on. I'm going to see if I can split screen this, and hopefully it will work. Sarah, let me know if it's not.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, awesome. So I just want to show you something here, because this is really what I'm looking for, because this is what I save when I do them. I just want to show you something, that every single line item here ties out. Okay, there's no pennies off. There's nothing that's off. So basically what I would do for those of you that are doing these and helping other people, I'm going to take a screenshot and save this, because this is my confirmation that when I handed it all over to you, we tied out. Okay, I'm not done. I'm gonna show you a few more, okay, because this is basically what I do. So after I pull up the balance sheet, I'm going to pull up the income statement just the same. Let me go back to that period. I don't want to see the zeros because this report will be really long, but I want to show you something. I'm gonna side by side this also. So my financials from QuickBooks are right here. And if you look, sorry, I don't know if that's too small for you, but let me, is that good? I mean, I'm going to try to get it as big as I could, but hopefully you can see that, maybe, is that okay? Okay. So I just want to show you now, this income time billing is off. So I'm going to have to look at that. And why that's so. But the cost of sales, oh, actually it is, it's these two are flipped. So that's the only difference, okay, is where I coded one of those journal entry items, but it is still the same, because I'm going to show you. I can switch it right now. I can figure out which one didn't tie out and pop it up on the screen, but you can see that, I mean, the net profit is there. The admin overhead ties out. The total expenses is off by an amount because, and I'll fix it right now because I want to make sure that this makes sense to everybody. Okay. So let me do the math on this so I can tell you where that we're going to find the item. So where I'm off on this is, okay, we tie out on the first total. And on the income time billing is 6 and 71,732.96. So it is the 3420 that is the difference, but I'm going to look at that. So the 3420 was my accounts payable. Okay, so I just need to reclass that to make it work. So let's see. Let me move that 3420 properly. So what I'm going to do is go into the general ledger. This wasn't planned, by the way. And I'm going to just pull up income time billing. And look for the 24 or 3420. Okay, so this cost of sales, and Income type billing and one more. So the extra. So one of these was probably not coded correctly. But if I were to take this one and change it to cost of sales, it should work. Okay, so let's pull up the income statement one more time. And let me pull up my profit and loss, and hopefully you can see. So now when we go back in, I must have coded one of those postings incorrectly. So that's how I found that. Okay, so you will find your own mistakes. So it should be line item by line item, perfectly tying out. Okay. So that is the first thing. Okay. So we know that the balance sheet and the P&L tie out. Great. I mean, that obviously means the trial balance ties out, but if I wanted to pull that report, I mean, we can, just to save it. I don't think it's necessary, but we totally could. Not include the zeros, and let's just, you're going to see that, I mean, disregard the current period because some of that involved my cleanup prior to this. You're going to look at the end numbers. Okay. And they all should tie out to each other. Okay. So that would be the trial balance. But I do want to pull up the accounts receivable and the other reports. Okay. Because I want to make sure that that is the last and final thing that you do on these. And that's what I save. Okay, so your accounts receivable is $17,998.04. My original AR from QuickBooks is $17,998.04. Blake's invoice. Okay, you can see that I clearly marked it, so there's no mistaking that this ties out. Each invoice is even in here the way that they have it. Okay, so I would save that or do a side by side. Okay, and then the next step would be to pull up my accounts payable. And oops, we'll go to custom reports because I saved my report already. You can see here that this AP now ties into my AP for the dining chairs. Okay, and it references all the old info. Okay, and then the next thing would be the vendor deposits. I'll just legacy reports, vendor deposits. Okay, and I want to PDF this, and these are my vendor deposits. Okay, so you can now see that each of the vendor deposits match what the old report said. Okay. If I wanted to pull it up with the details in Studio, I have other reports. I can pull it up that it would have the details if you wanted to see that. Okay, so the vendor deposits now tie. I would save that and side screen that. And the last one was client deposits, and I'm going to pull that up. You don't want to include zeros. And we are going to PDF this, and now you can see that these are the funds for each client, and you can see here that it also ties in to the clients on the old report. Okay, so then now what I'm doing is I am side screening that side by side putting that on side-by-side comparison. So that way we know that it ties out, and I save all these reports and then I hand it over. Okay. And then the last and final step would be, getting started on your next bank rec. But all of that process to where we're going to now go ahead and go live in studio is after the fact that we've done this full accounting conversion. This bank reconciliation is something that you don't usually have if you've already followed these steps and did, the cleanup. Now, if you have to enter any outstanding items, like maybe, you wrote a check for rent and it just hasn't cleared, or whatever the case may be, all you're going to do is, well, I didn't have an example for that, but I want to quickly go over it. It's not often that I will have a lot of outstanding when I've done the cleanup, but it's not also uncommon for people to have that. So what I would do is I would go into accounting, money out, and how I would enter that is I would really enter these payments the way they should be. But when we get to the expense distribution, and I will go ahead and do one of them so you can see. I will say check number 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to date it for the 12/31/22. And in order for this to post, I'm just going to do sample. Okay, because I needed to get to the expense account. Now, when I'm doing the expense account, you're going to also put this as the checking account. Okay, and you're going to put whatever total you need this to be. And you're going to do this for every outstanding check, should there be one. Okay. And the reason for that is when you post it, when you go to do your first bank rec, you're going to already have that out there. It's going to be in that account. Okay, whoops, let me go into the reconciliation. So for example, this was a bad one to do. That's why I skipped going over this, but let's just do it for 12/30 instead. I'm almost done, Sarah. I know we're timing. I'm just trying to, oh, it's not going to let me do it. Well, you would basically enter both sides. And when you do the bank rec, you're going to only reconcile one because you'll have in and out. So the only one that would remain, depending if it's a deposit or a withdrawal, would be, I'm going to go ahead and show it again. Only problem is I have cleanup in here for my webinar. So I would still just go in here and I'm trying to look for that check number 1, 2, 3, 4. Did I not post it? Oh, I didn't post it, did I? Okay. Yeah, let me post that. Okay, let me just show you on the reconciliation now, because you would see how they're both here. Now this, when you go ahead and set this up, you would have taken into account that there were outstanding checks, and I didn't do that. I wanted to do it on the most basic of accounting conversions. But the reason why I wanted to quickly walk over this process is because it is included in the instructions that you pull up on Studio. Okay. So you would have, had this on your beginning balance. Your beginning balance would have been a different amount had there been any outstanding checks. Okay. So this would have still tied out. I didn't walk over it, but that's how you would do it. You're going to code both sides and then reconcile the side that you don't need as part of your beginning balance. Okay, it would have tied out. Okay, and if there's any questions on that piece of it, definitely reach out and ask me. But you should have already addressed any cleanup or outstanding. Okay, and if there was any, this is how that would have been shown. So that being said, I would retain all of this documentation as part of my accounting conversion, along with the old reports, and basically consider myself now able to go live on 1/1/23. Okay. And then what I would do if, like I said, if we were doing the conversion now, I would just catch up, in real time what truly happened the first 5 months. Okay. And if you're organized and up to date, that should be no issue. Okay. And if it is, then again, now's the chance for you to get your ducks in a row and get your processes in order, because you have an amazing software that's very powerful. Okay. Studio or any software is going to be as powerful as the information you feed it. So that being said, be thorough, know that everything, has its place when you do these conversions. And this is why I am so adamant about the financials being in final form, because if you change your mind, it changes numbers and it just gets for a sloppy or drawn out conversion. But the conversions are not hard. You saw, I literally did a full conversion and with more than one example. Okay. So that is about it. I am going to knock out as many questions as I can. Sarah?
All right, thanks, Maree.
Okay.
So our first question is from Angela, and she would like to know, how did you get the POs in to apply to the vendor deposit? So that was about 20 minutes ago.
Okay.
How did you get the POs in to apply to the vendor deposit?
Okay. So in order to prep for my webinar, and I'll just show you because I can, basically what I did was I selected whichever ones I wanted to create a PO for. And I did that prior to the webinar, so it wouldn't take long. But if I wanted to create, and I'll just do it on one of them. I'm going to just clone this and we're going to pretend just so I can answer that question. Okay. I'm going to clone this and save and close front room sitting area. Okay. So you can see here. So we're going to just pretend that this didn't have a PO. All I would do is check the box and create an order. Okay. And that's what I did prior to the webinar. So now this is the new PO that we would now have. Okay. So that is.
Okay. So yeah, sorry.
Did that
I'm
answer?
here.
Okay. Did that answer the question? Yeah. Okay.
I think so. Write in Angela if it didn't.
Okay.
All right. So our next question is also from Angela. Do you always use the conversion date for the date of the vendor deposit and client deposit, or the actual date?
I like using the conversion date, but I will, whenever possible, I will note it. There's a ton of places where you can note that. And that's where I use the check or the description. Like, for example, if I was going to pay this, if I wanted to, put the real information, I would still probably just go like this, post it with that posting date. But then if I wanted to, I would say, how I said the 12/31/22 conversion, but you can always try to put in any notes here. The other thing that I would do, because I like things to be uniform in its naming convention, because if I needed to search anything, because I have all of this backup, I save working notes when I do these, I would know then I can search because of the way I named it. Okay. But if you ever wanted to really document all that, I use the vendor area, because if you've already paid them, or if you've already set this up with the vendor, you can still use the vendor description for whatever you wanted. The other place I would do it is in notes. Okay. And I usually have a code, like, for example, anytime, what's a good code? Anytime you might see something like this, that's our internal code. Or even if I pushed it way out here, whatever code you wanted to be, I just say C notes. You can also say it in through here. Whatever it is, I use all the sections that Studio allows me to use, because, I like to think of all of the things that we have here as standalone. So if I'm not working with somebody and I created something, I want to make sure that my work stands alone and that it could, survive anybody scrutinizing it. Like, why did she not have charged this? Or did she know that we lost on this item, whatever the case may be. So if I have a mistake, I totally call myself out on it, because I know where I'm going to make it up. Okay. I don't make mistakes, but that they happen. Okay. So document, use these notes, you know, just document everything. So does that answer that question?
I think so. Angela responded and said, great webinar. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you.
All right. A question from Rosemary has come in. What happens to the offset account you used for opening AR and AP that will originally, I think, JE clear when paid? And I apologize if I'm not saying that sentence correctly, or question rather.
Journal entry.
Yeah, probably.
Can you repeat that?
Yes. What happens to the offset account that you use for opening AR and AP? Will the original journal entry clear when paid?
Well, no. So here's the thing. When we set up the sub ledgers, like for AR, let's say, you know, there is an AR, you saw the main thing you have to know is that it all tied out when we did the conversion. That means everything is accounted for. So everything as it's entered is in. So that means if a client now pays for one of the open AR invoices or anything like that, it's not going to be double accounted for. It's already in. So it's already in and showing up. So like, what's a good example? I'm just going to go into money in and AR. Okay, like for instance, let's say that client Blake now comes in to pay for, I know that's not a good one. Let's see. Hold on. He should have a total. Let's see. And hopefully this will answer that question. I understand, but I know it's hard. That one's a weird one to word. And I'm assuming that means journal entry. Okay, I don't know why it's taking so long. Let's see, invoices. Okay, so Blake. Okay, he should have one. Okay, so let's say this client Blake comes in and I don't know, now we're in January and he pays this invoice. Let's just say he pays it in full. It now is no longer going to, like I physically changed it to go into income time billing when I was entering those client deposits. And it was also entered when we entered the open AR. So when it ties out in a conversion, if there was any issues or mistakes, we'd have to just find it and kind of figure out where something went askew. Otherwise, they should tie perfectly to your old financials. So when we hit this, it really is going to increase the amount in our checking account, which we want it to do. And then this is already accounted for in the income time billing when we posted the AR. So the AR technically comes in when we post those activities, and then we bill them out in time billing. Does that answer that question?
I think so. Rosemary responded and said, okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, awesome.
Another question has come in from Amy. What about inventory? Is there a studio import for large inventories? Can you transfer inventory from Shopify?
I have always done the inventory manually. I think because that is our time. And if you haven't already done so, for those of you that have, again, depending on how large of an inventory we're talking, but typically it makes a lot of sense to go ahead and enter the inventory as if it was all coming in, like as if it was new. And there is a process for that. It's very similar to the way that we covered the subledger items. I would do a journal entry and kind of make it go into that. And I'm happy to create additional information on that, but I don't bulk anything. That is the time to kind of clean up. And it's something that kind of is a great way to have your staff. If you have a big bulky inventory over $1 million, then I'm thinking you probably have staff. So I would utilize that, setting up those inventory items, and I would allow everybody that normally is involved in that to go ahead and set up a few items and get in on that process with me. And I just make sure that it still ties out when I do that last and final journal entry. So that I would probably either, ask for some help. But yeah, I normally take the time to set up all of those items instead of doing a bulk entry.
Great. Amy says, thank you. So those are our questions for now. We have a few more minutes left.
Okay.
If anyone has any additional questions, please feel free to type them in. In the meantime, if there's anything additional you want to share, Maree, go for it. Yeah.
I do. I get a lot of questions on inventory, and I do want to mention that I have created content on it. It is super simple. And in my steps, there's 3 steps to get something into inventory. It is to purchase inventory, receive it, purchase inventory by let me back up a step. You're going to set up inventory, which I'll show you how to do. So through projects, you're going to go into inventory, and you're going to actually set up all the information on the item or items that you have, right? So this is how you set it up. So you're just going to go into inventory and set this all up, okay? You're going to enter a vendor ID that makes sense, to whatever your naming conventions are. And I see a bunch of different ways to do that. So set up inventory. Then the next thing is to go in here and purchase it. So you're going to go in here, a new item, and right here it says purchase inventory. You're going to go ahead and purchase it, because in order for us to have something to receive, we need to buy it. Okay. And Studio knows that. So you go through the motion. It all defaults. It's not really hard. Once you set it up in inventory, everything kind of auto populates and you now purchase it. So, right, you're going to pay money to purchase this. And then once it's paid with the PO and everything, the last step is going back into inventory and receiving it to make sure that we have it. It's in good working order. If it came from a return on a project, or something like that, all the accounting and everything is kind of wrapped up on both sides of it. Okay. When I have things in inventory, if it came from a project, I have a process on that. And there's a very specific process for you to follow. And Studio makes sure that it's almost foolproof. I have seen people screw it up, but that's because they're going in and arbitrarily kind of adjusting things wherever they want to. Okay. Whenever I see any issues with inventory, it's because they're trying to skip steps. So if you need information on that, I have it. Yes.
Maree, regarding inventory, a question has come in.
Yes.
When you were speaking. When you do the inventory, what chart of account do you use to offset?
Well, when you're doing everything properly, like for the first time, you're not having to offset anything. And if you're talking in terms of the conversion, Studio does come with one that there is to use. So you would skip that, but you're still going to enter, you would skip that line item for the time being. And then when you needed to fill that specific line item for the journal entry, Studio comes with one, and it's just called inventory adjustment. And I'll show you that real quick. So your Studio, like I didn't create this account, it comes with an inventory adjustment account. So when people come in with an inventory total that didn't come in on a normal process where we have a PO and the backup for it, Studio allows you to adjust for it. So there is a way to do that, and it's on the video.
All right. I think that's all that we have time for today.
Okay. Well, great.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Maree.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to let you do closing.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
So great information. I hope that was helpful for everyone that joined the call. I'm going to be sharing my screen, and it's going to be Maree's contact information, including the support team's contact information. So give me just a moment to pull that up. There we go. All right. So, excuse me. So to reach Maree, her email is Maree@Mareevuitton.com. And you can go ahead and check out her website, Mareevuitton.com. And on the right-hand side, you can reach the internal support team. We've listed the information there through email, support@studiodesigner.com. You can chat with the support team and schedule non-billable 15-minute phone calls. So as I mentioned prior, today's webinar will be recorded, and you can access that recording in your Studio Designer account in the Learning Hub. Thank you everyone for joining today. Thanks, Marie.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.